Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. We will be starting in a few moments. Assalamu alaikum. I hope that my voice is audible to all of you. I'm Abdullah, and on behalf of AlHuda Center of Islamic Banking and Economics, I welcome you all to today's webinar. I sincerely hope that all of you are having a constructive and beneficial program, and I believe that today's webinar will be an excellent learning experience for all of you. At AlHuda Saib, our mission is to create awareness, learning, train human capital, and to develop Islamic financial products to cater for the market needs, bringing more and more compatibility between customers and Islamic financial institutions. For this, we have developed specially tailored distance learning programs. We organize conferences, webinars, and awareness sessions, and provide advisory and consultancy services to organizations globally. And we were ranked first at top global Islamic finance seminar organizations by ICD, Islamic Development Banks, and Thomson Reuters. Today, we will have an intellectual session with our esteemed guest on how about activating modes of Islamic finance in the midst of this pandemic. For this particular topic, today I am honored to introduce Dr. Aishath Muneeza, who have given us today's time for this session. Thank you for joining us, madam, and I'm really pleased that you could spare time for us in this session from your busy schedule. Respected participants, allow me to give you a brief introduction of our distinguished speaker and guest. Dr. Aishath Muneeza is an associate professor at INSEAF Malaysia, which is a globally renowned university for Islamic finance. She has also served in many senior roles in the Maldives Ministry of Islamic Affairs, Deputy Minister of Ministry of Finance and Treasury, Head of Islamic Finance for Capital Market Development Authority of Maldives. Dr. Muneeza is the registered Sharia advisor with the Capital Market Development Authority of Maldives and Security Commission of Malaysia. Furthermore, she is also an accomplished researcher and has 60 plus research papers published in various academic journals, and she has also published 6 books. Along with all these achievements, she is also the recipient of numerous national and international awards. The awards include the Hindi Award, which is the highest honor given to women by the Ministry or Government of Maldives. She also won Inspirational Women of the Year 2018 by Women in Management Service Recognition by Women in Management and Service Recognition Award by Amana Takaful Maldives. And the list for her achievements stretches on, and is proof of her excellence and professionalism. So without further delay, I will invite Dr. Aishath Muneeza to take over and address the participants on this crucial topic. Dr. Muneeza, if you will, please.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's an honor to be here with you all today. So without further ado, let's go to the presentation and let's see whether you have any questions afterwards. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible to us and we can see it clearly.
Okay, so let's go to it. As you know, the topic that we are going to discuss today is about activating modes of Islamic social finance in the midst of the pandemic. Now, we all know that today we are living in a world where the number of poor and needy has increased overnight, and we need to find a solution to ensure that everybody is happy living in this world. So in order to give happiness to others, shared responsibility is something we have to activate and we have to be mindful of. So in this presentation, briefly, we will be looking at what is Islamic social finance all about, modes of Islamic social finance, how Islamic finance could be activated in the midst of COVID, some recommendations on this regard, and the way forward, we will look at it briefly. Now, before we go into it, let me draw your attention to a book which we have recently published on a similar topic, which is COVID-19 and Islamic social finance. So in this book, what we have done is we have looked at the modes of Islamic social finance from different perspectives, and we have discussed different models of how it could be utilized in the midst of COVID and what would be the future like whenever the COVID is finished or in the midst of COVID, what should we expect from Islamic finance is discussed there. So if anyone is interested, you may go to the link and view it. So let's go to the introduction. As we know that COVID is something which is unpredictable. We never ever thought that, for example, 2 years back, something like this will come to our lives and it will stop everything that we are doing normally in our daily lives. But unfortunately, that is what we have faced. And because of this, some people say that COVID-19 is a black swan event. And while some others says that COVID-19 is really an event that has led us to realize the defects of our financial system, defects of everything we do in our normal life, so that we have a chance to again start by re-strategizing everything, so that at least we become more human and we become more like helping people who need help rather than think about ourselves only. So anyhow, the gist of this introduction is that obviously, we never predicted that this event would happen, but since this has happened, it has taught us some lessons that we need to really understand and we need to shape our future. So in this slide, what I'm showing here is that what is the impact of the pandemic on our lives? How did everything happen overnight? So obviously the pandemic came, and then it became as a threat to the whole humanity, and human lives were under threat. Therefore, containment measures were taken by the governments. And then one of the measures taken is the lockdown measures. As a result, almost all the economic activities were stranded. And then due to that, the companies and the individuals lost their income, and they were unable to get back to their feet. And due to that, global poverty level increased to the extent that it's reported that today our global poverty level has gone back to 30 years, how it was back in 30 years. And there's a lot of things we have to do in order to rectify the situation. Because as you know, we were very happily moving towards achieving SDGs, and the SDGs are also have some overlapping when it comes to achieving no poverty or eliminating poverty in the world. So while we were doing that, when pandemic came, the impact of it is so much that today we realize that we have to start all the work from scratch, and we have to really do our best to make sure that we can progress in this regard. Now let us briefly look at what is Islamic social finance. Now, as you know, normally we hear about Islamic banks, takaful, and Islamic capital market as components of Islamic finance. But the reality is that all those components are the components of Islamic commercial finance. And all these days prior to pandemic, we were concerned about how do we develop Islamic commercial finance, how do we come up with innovative Islamic commercial finance modes. But suddenly, when the pandemic came, we realized that Islamic commercial finance is inadequate to achieve social justice in societies. So what's the main reason why we realized that is because, obviously, as you know, when a pandemic came in, when people lost their income, if they have taken any financing facilities or loans from the financial institutions, the governments the respective governments of different countries gave leeways by giving debt moratorium to these people who were affected. However, even after the moratorium period was over, what we realized is that they're unable to still pay back the loans as they were paying it before the pandemic. The reason is because they just need a helping hand, not a stopping factor or not a stoppage per se, because at the end of the day, what we are concerned about is that how are they going to pay back the loans if they're unable to earn anything? Affected is that by providing them a helping hand. So what is this helping hand? Can we provide this helping hand through the modes of Islamic commercial finance? The answer is no, because it is inadequate. Why is it inadequate? Because the way in which we have structured Islamic commercial modes of finance is to gain profit. We don't care about the fact that what is happening to a poor or a needy, or the socioeconomic impact is not so much measured and covered in those types of financing modes. So as a result, the whole world was looking for an alternative to the Islamic commercial modes of finance that we are having right now. And the answer for that is already there in Islam, which is the Islamic social finance modes. So basically, Islamic social finance is a branch of Islamic finance that offers product and services not for profit. However, this does not mean that there wouldn't be any profitable mechanisms structured in this type of finance. At the end of the day, this type of finance is more concerned about the socio-economic impact it creates and how these issues can be resolved by helping those who need help and by ensuring that everybody has something. So basically, in short, it means that we are moving towards financial inclusion. So that is the gist of it. So another thing which I want you to know is that when it comes to Islamic social finance tools or institutions, there is no exhaustive list of those types of tools and institutions because it is a growing area. And there are classical tools or institutions, as well as there are contemporary tools and institutions which are emerging right now. For instance, if you talk about micro Sukuk, it is, we can say, an innovation that has not been previously used for Islamic social finance, but now people have considered that as an instrument that could be included in Islamic social finance as well. So again, another point which is important here for you to understand is that the same instruments, same products that we use in Islamic commercial finance could be used or extended in Islamic social finance as well. But the difference is the objective of those instruments and how they have been structured in order to achieve some socioeconomic goals in the society using socioeconomic justice principles. So let us briefly look at the modes of Islamic social finance. Number one is zakat. Zakat is not only an Islamic social finance mode, but it is also a part and parcel of our ibadat activity. So for all Muslims, it is a compulsory payment that needs to be made annually if they're eligible to do so. And we know the recipients of it from the Quran itself. And the recipients are really we call them legal recipients because we know them from the Quranic verses. Next is sadaqat or infaq. So when it comes to sadaqat or infaq, again, the difference between sadaqat and infaq to zakat is that zakat is compulsory and there is a portion that is compulsory for you to give, and even the recipients or the beneficiaries are known. But when it comes to zakat, when it comes to sadaqat or infaq, it is flexible in that way. You can give this type of money to anyone you want at any time of the year, and there aren't any rigid rules in relation to that. So we can say that in short, sadaqat or infaq is a non-compulsory payment given to assist poor and needy to seek pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then comes waqf. Waqf is a non-compulsory, irrevocable, which means a permanent contribution of one's wealth, whether cash or in kind, to seek pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for social purposes. So as you know, waqf is also an institution that has been utilized before to ensure that there is some kind of social responsibility which is shared among the population to achieve socioeconomic justice. And it is during the Ottoman Empire, for example, if you look at the progress of waqf, you will understand that the progress is very good, and even the impact it created is very good in the sense that the poverty alleviation has been helped through waqf institution, and many more kind of innovations were seen during that time, to the extent that people really relied on waqf. But unfortunately today, we need to revive waqf as well. So next is takaful and microfinance. So as you know, takaful, again, it is a mainstream component of Islamic commercial finance, but when it comes to Islamic social finance, we have to ensure that the product is structured in such a way that those who are being adversely affected or poor and needy are being helped through the mechanism. And microfinance, obviously, there are many kinds of contracts used in microfinance institutions. However, interest-free loan, Qarl Hasan, is something which is still famous and which we have to use in order to ensure that those who are unable to participate in Islamic commercial modes of finance are being able to given the opportunity to ensure that they can start a productive activity to get more income or to be like self-sufficient. So as I told you before, what about Sukuk? Sukuk is nowadays being used as an Islamic social finance instruments as well. And there are many other more types of instruments or tools that could be used as Islamic social finance products, because there is no limit to it. Sky is the limit. Any type of instrument that we could adjust to the objectives of Islamic social finance can be considered as Islamic finance social instruments. So next, what we are going to look at is in the midst of the pandemic, what has been done through these Islamic social finance instruments to help the needy and poor. So for example, when it comes to Zakat, if you look at Abu Dhabi, it is reported that Zakat Fund has provided 86.3 million dinars in aid to 5,109 eligible families since the beginning of 2020, and the number of new cases were 2,764 families affected by the pandemic, 93.3% of whom are eligible for Zakat. So what we see from here is that obviously Zakat can come to the rescue of those who are in need in the midst of the pandemic. However, in order to provide this as a rescue mechanism, the authorities who are responsible to deal with Zakat or the organizations dealing with Zakat need to have a broad mind, and they need to play a proactive role. So proactive role here means that, number one, they need to make sure that they understand what is happening in the society. If they have a rigid way of finding or locating the recipients of Zakat, they need to make a flexible way of identifying it. If there's need to revise the poor and needy mechanisms that they were using prior to the pandemic, that should be done for the first thing. And then in order to help them, there should be specific type of packages, or they have to structure a specific special kind of assistance programs to those who are in need, so that at least Zakat could be used for their that particular purpose or the challenges which the specific individual is facing. For instance, there are debtors as well. We have found from the statistics that globally the number of debtors has increased because of pandemic due to loss of income and other factors as well. So we already know that debtors are increasing. So how do we help them? What is the mechanism we have established? Did we play with the yardstick and ensure that these people can be included in such type of existing programs where Zakat assistance are given? If no, is there any way we could do that? So these are the things we have to consider in the midst of the pandemic, so that at least we will be able to reach those who are in need of help, and those are those people who deserve the Zakat most during the pandemic. So these types of proactive role is required, and without these proactive roles, it would be impossible to locate those who are the most deserved recipients of Zakat during the pandemic. So from this slide, you can see from the other parts of the world also the success story of Zakat distribution in the midst of the pandemic. And I think this is something we have to emphasize. All the Muslim societies need to think about this and need to understand that Zakat could play an important role in the midst of the pandemic. It's just that we need to activate it. Next is Sadaqat and Infaq. Again, Sadaqat and Infaq has always been a helping hand for those who are in need. So what we have seen from UAE is that in UAE, they have activated social media campaigns so that they could at least raise financing from the public domain and give it to those who deserves it. So for example, let's take one example from here. Stop and Help initiative is where if anyone cannot afford essentials, anonymously people could help them. So these are good initiatives which we need to do more, because right now everybody is a social media ambassador. Everybody has a social media account. So why not we become a person who could help others by using the means we have, so that at least we become a person who is not thinking about ourselves at this pandemic, but we are also doing what we are supposed to do, not only in religion, but as a community, as the member of a community, we need to do things that will be beneficial to our community as well. So in UAE, all these examples which I've listed here is really good, because they have done, individuals, even the organizations, NGOs, they have done their part in ensuring that whatever the platform they had is used to help others. So I think this is something we should do more. And this is one way we could activate modes of Islamic social finance in the midst of the pandemic. And without even spending a single penny to do this, we are able to do this, and the impact you create is very huge because of these types of campaigns. So I would want to call all of the participants of this webinar to think about this, because this is something we all can do. Obviously, Waqf is another mechanism. So if you look at the two examples which I have provided there from two different jurisdictions, again, it's a successful story. But Waqf is something you need to really formalize and institutionalize when it is conducted, especially cash Waqf. So therefore, I believe that the NGOs, the government, and the corporations can play a vital role in having established Waqf for COVID-affected persons, where the funds created using cash Waqf concept would be a sustainable fund that could be used over and over again to help the poor and needy and anyone affected by the pandemic. Even, for example, let's say you talk about human development during these days, and research and innovation. So Waqf can be a solution for these issues, financing gaps in these areas as well. But the only thing required is to activate it, to ensure that it is established in a manner that is sustainable. Next is takaful. Now, if we see Egypt example and the Malaysian example, we understand that social takaful can help communities, especially those who are unable to have money to go to hospitals and spend on their health requirements. There could be help through these types of schemes, and the governments could play a vital role in this regard. However, it's not only the government who should play a role in this. Even the NGOs, even the big corporations, they could play a role in this. For example, through the corporate social responsibility money, which is always spent on good beneficial causes, could be dedicated on takaful schemes that would help the poor and needy. And this would be something really impactful in the societies, because everybody is looking for a way to save their lives. And if you are able to do that, why not spend money on these type of schemes that would be beneficial for those who need a helping hand? Therefore, I believe that activating takaful is also very, very important, especially the social schemes that would benefit those who are in below the poverty level. Next is Islamic microfinance. So again, Islamic microfinance plays not only it's not only giving money to help people, but at the same time, to attain self-sufficiency, microfinance can play a vital role. Therefore, what I believe is that it's very important that we understand what are the needs of our societies right now in the midst of the pandemic. If anybody needs to divert or convert or change the previous economic activity he was conducting to a new one, microfinance can provide a helping hand, and it could provide self-sufficiency to the people as well. So to start a productive activity, to take whatever you are doing to the next level, to expand your businesses, I think it's very important that some kind of a helping hand is provided to those who are unable to reach out to Islamic commercial financial institutions. And we have a lot of examples of that from all over the world. And one example which I have highlighted here is from Pakistan. So if you look at the numbers here, you see that the numbers are amazing, and it shows how much people are in need and how much help we could give to them, and how much beneficial it would be if we can activate Islamic microfinance in the midst of COVID by understanding our communities. So I believe that this is again something we have to reconsider, and we have to ensure that this is a mechanism available to those who are in our societies. Okay, so let us look at how Islamic social finance could be activated in the midst of the pandemic. Now, previously we have seen examples. We understand that this is not something new. We understand that this is not something which is unachievable. We understand that this is not something theoretical. This is practical, because in some of the parts of the world, already they have done it, they have achieved it, they are doing it. So why can't we do the same, right? So that's the mindset we are supposed to have. So coming to this slide, what I want you to understand is that there are many ways in which we could activate Islamic social finance modes in the midst of the pandemic. Number one is for all types of Islamic social finance tools or institutions, we need to ensure that funds received are increased because the demand is more than the supply. So obviously we need to establish sustainable ways in which we could get funding, right? So next is adopting an effective way to make the distribution to needy and poor. So how do we locate the needy? We know that in our neighborhood there are needy people. But how would the authority know that there are needy people in a remote area? Who would do that job? Can the Islamic financial institution come and do everything for themselves? No, so it should be a shared responsibility. So in the struggle to do this, obviously technology can be synced and technology can play a vital role in this. Introducing technology-based mechanism to locate poor. So this is what I'm talking about. If there is a mechanism that can be used in the midst of the pandemic to locate the poor and needy, for example, today we know that using Internet of Things, it is possible to measure household poverty level. So why not we invest in such technology and try to use it for our advantage rather than having the classical way of poor and needy coming to an organization, coming to a government organization or an NGO or a company and doing self-registration as a poor and needy by filling the form and then attending interviews and then participating in cross-verification mechanism. Instead of having that type of a procedure, why can't we change it during the pandemic? Because we have the opportunity to do it. And in order to tap into this opportunity, what we need to do is we need to invest in the required technology. That investment needs to be done now because that's the only way we could progress. Next is implementation of an ihsan-based approach to cross-verify the poor. There has been a lot of complaints in the past. Whenever we conduct a survey among the zakat recipients, wherever in the world, one of the complaints which is common is that they believe that cross-verification of poor mechanisms are very rigid. Sometimes they have to show a lot of documents. Apart from the documents, they are being interviewed and cross-verified, and there are officers who come and visit to their houses and everything. So during this process, some complaints are complaints that when this is done, they feel that their whole private life is made public, and the questions asked by some of them, the tone and the words they pick is really disheartening to those who comes forward and declare as poor and needy. So what I believe is that technology again could lead to a more ihsan-based approach to cross-verify the poor. For example, we can come up with a mechanism to have chatbots using artificial intelligence, so that at least there wouldn't be so much human intervention involved. It would be more like a less human intervened approach that might provide more ihsan to those who are registering as poor and needy. And next is eliminating unnecessary registration process required for poor to receive help. So normally in the midst of the COVID, we understand that physical movement is very restricted. And if we have any technology-based mechanism using our mobile phones or using internet platforms to register as poor, completely, I mean, one-time registration could be acceptable, but in a year, if you have to register more than one time to get assistance, then it becomes a bit difficult process for those who receive it as well. So in order to balance the approach, meaning that we don't want to like overlap the jurisdiction of the zakat organizations or waqf organizations or all those Islamic financial tool managing organizations jurisdiction to determine who is a poor. But we want to balance it in such a way that no party will be in a disadvantageous position and both parties would benefit. And that benefit could be attained through, again, I believe technology would be providing a solution for this. Therefore, what we are proposing here is that just if there is any way we could eliminate the unnecessary registration process, it should be eliminated to ensure that people who are coming forward and declaring themselves as those who need help would be willing to come forward and ask for help before it's too late. And we also want to ensure that when they come and declare that there is an equitable mechanism to determine whether they are really needy or they are eligible or not for that particular purpose needs to be determined in a balanced way. Next is run social media campaigns to help poor. So this is something I believe that everybody can do. Every one of us are today engaged in social media, and this is not something which is remote and which is strange or alien to us. What we need to do is just take that first step to activate becoming Islamic Social Finance Ambassador and start helping people. So these are the recommendations. So based on the first one, increased funds received for needy and poor, what I have suggested, because there are many recommendations that could be suggested, but I have just proposed one recommendation for each part so that at least we can think about these things in depth. So the first way to increase funds received for needy and poor is that charity rounding up initiative could be activated. Now, what is charity rounding up initiative? For example, let's say today we buy things from electronic commercial platforms. So when you check out by buying things, if there is any like cents, which is like, let's say your total figure is 100.50. So in that case, you can top up, you can give that 50 cents to charity. Let's say you paid 101 ringgit. So in that case, the 50 cent will be going to the charity. So that could be an initiative that would be less, how would I put this? Because let's say I paid. So for the payer, it is not a huge amount, but for the receiver, it would be a huge amount, right? And if we can make a fund out of this type of initiative, the amount will increase day by day to the extent that it will become a significant amount. So I believe that this is something that could be activated today in all electronic commerce platforms so that at least we could get benefit from those cents, which is not much to the payer. Okay. Next is adopting an effective way to make the distribution to needy and poor. So delivering charity to those in need and switching from physical delivery is something we could consider. For example, a QR code could be given to the recipient, and he could go to the nearest shop and show the code and do shopping. So instead of delivering the physical money, or if you don't have a bank account, or if that is not an option, obviously there are other types of options that could be used through technological progress we have achieved. And it's just a matter of understanding what would be the most suitable way. And I believe that this is something we have to do right now in order to ensure that there is proper distribution of the funds to those who are the most deserved recipients of it. Next is introducing a technology-based mechanism to locate poor. So using GPS function, even you can locate the poor where they are geographically located can be found. And then after finding that, obviously, aid could be delivered. And these are the things that we have to use, but it's just a matter of doing the investment, the proper required investments, and we need to be proactive in this. So this is something, the cross-verification mechanism is something I've already discussed about chatbots. So I believe that this is, again, not a technology we haven't used in relation to Zakat. For example, BuzzNaz, a couple of years back, they have announced that they are using chatbots, but not for cross-verification purposes, but to answer the questions people will have. Plus, to do Zakat calculations, chatbots have been used in Malaysia as well. So I believe that this is something which we are using, but can be extended to another type of use as well. Next is eliminating unnecessary registration process. Again, IoT could be used because today we can use IoT for our own advantage. So let me just elaborate how it could be used. definitely there's an initial investment that must be made by the zakat organization. So when a poor registers or a needy registers, the zakat organization needs to give a smart gadget to the person who has registered, and this gadget will be taken to the home, and it will have a special sensor where the information will be collected, and through internet the information will be shared with the zakat authority. So meaning that consent of the party also will be required to exchange the information. And from this information, there are a lot of things we can analyze, and one of the things that could be analyzed is the household poverty level. So people say whether this is practical or not. Oh, I mean, we have to try, we have to invest in the gadgets, we have to ensure that people understand the consequences of using it. And then if we can find a way in which all parties benefit in the process, I think that should be something we should consider. So next is running of social media campaigns to help the poor. So as I told before, social media today is a very powerful tool. By sitting at your own comfort, you can do wonders using it. So why not use it to help a person who is really in need? If you know that your neighbor is in trouble, if you know that your someone whom you know from another part of the world is in trouble, why not help them through the means you have, so that at least you will achieve shared prosperity, and you will also be doing something not only which is good for this world, but for hereafter as well. So what is the way forward in this regard? So the points here is like quite bulky or quite huge. It might be like in simple words which are written there, but what you have to do, or what we have to do, is quite big here. Number one, for example, we need to move towards institutionalization of Islamic social finance. So how do we institutionalize Islamic social finance? Obviously, in some of the jurisdictions today, people do it in the informal sector. One person might be collecting zakat, and the other person might be doing a waqf institution. The others might do small microfinance lending. But when it comes to like formalization of it, when it comes to having it under one roof, that we don't see still. So if we can put under one roof all types of Islamic commercial financing modes, why can't we do the same in Islamic social finance? That's the question I have here. Next is towards integration of technology with Islamic social finance. So obviously, classically, if you talk about even collection of zakat or sadaqat or waqf, it's always physical delivery of money. And, if you go to Jumu'ah prayer, people will pass a box where you have to, or a tin where you have to put the money. But now things have changed. We can't afford to do any physical type of activity like that. Therefore, we need to adjust with time, we need to adjust with COVID, and we need to adopt technology to ensure that this is done in a way which is COVID friendly and which will save our lives as well. Next is towards integration of Islamic social finance with Islamic commercial financial institutions. So the idea here is that if a person has taken an Islamic commercial finance loan or a financing facility and suddenly realized that he's going to default because he has suddenly loss of income. Overnight, he lost his job. All his savings are gone. So in that situation, does he have to go out of the Islamic commercial financial institution to seek Islamic social finance? So the idea here is that it should be a no. There should be a mechanism established within the Islamic commercial financial institutions that would be able to give a person who is in need of Islamic social finance the assistance through Islamic social finance tools, so that he will not have to go to any other place. So under one roof, we should be able to provide Islamic commercial finance as well as Islamic commercial finance, and Islamic social finance must be provided under one roof. That's the whole idea, merging. So the final one is towards internationalization of Islamic social finance. So for this, let me give you a small example. Let's assume that in the midst of the pandemic, you have collected sadaqat or zakat or waqf for a particular geographical location in which you are living in. And then you found that everybody is happy in that particular area. There's no needy, no poor. So in that situation, what do you do? Do you sit on the money, or do you deliver the money, transport the money to another place where there are poor and needy? So this could happen in a jurisdiction, or if it's beyond a country, what do you do? Can you send it from country A to country B, this assistance, if you believe that in country A there are no poor? So this type of mentality needs to be activated, because we need to think like one ummah. One ummah here means that we need to think that we all are brothers and sisters, we are related to each other. So as such, we don't have to think like, if you are in a particular country, you just have to help the people who are needy and poor in that particular jurisdiction. No, we need to think much more wider today. With internet, with the technology, with Industry 4.0, world have become small, and we are able to reach out to people who are physically far away from us as well. So why not we internationalize whatever we do when it comes to Islamic social finance, and ensure that as a ummah, we try to achieve zero poverty. So I think it has come to an end. So with this, I will open the floor for question and answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your valuable insight into the topic. Now we should move towards the question answer session. All the participants are allowed to unmute themselves or ask questions in the chat box. Right, so madam, I received.
Sorry? Yes, please go on if you have a question.
Right, madam, I received a question regarding work. Can a work change from being a work temporarily and then go back to being one permanently?
Sorry, I didn't hear it so well. Can you please repeat it?
Right.
Sorry, I didn't hear it so well. Can you please repeat it?
Is my voice audible now?
Yes, it is better now.
Right. So the question was, can a waqf change from being a waqf temporarily and then?
So it's about waqf, right? First, it is a temporary one, then you want to change it to a permanent one. Is that the question? So it's about waqf, right? First, it is a temporary one, then you want to change.
Yes, that is true.
So in waqf, okay, I think I understood the question. If I understood it correctly, the answer for that is normally, as you know, the way in which you should create a waqf is it should be in perpetuity. So as long as, what I believe is that it should be in perpetuity. So as long as you fulfill that principle in it, it should be okay. There's one question here. Assalamu alaikum. What would it be if you were to describe the purpose of Islamic social finance in the simplest way? The answer for that question is, thank you very much for the question. The answer for that would be, Of course, Islamic social finance is there to help those who are financially excluded in the formal sector of the economy. So in short, the main objective of Islamic social finance is to ensure that everybody achieves financial inclusion. So this financial inclusion is achieved not only using the profitable ways of financing, but through charitable ways of financing as well. So as long as we can achieve that objective, I think it should be a mode of Islamic social finance. I hope I have answered your question.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
My name is Ismail Muhammad. I have one question.
Yes.
My question is, can Islamic financial institution can take a role in this pandemic, such as using a Gharad Hasan or anything? Because Gharad Hasan itself is a social financial tool, but Islamic financial institutions are towards profit. But I think for their own sustainability, what is your idea on using Gharad, for instance?
By Islamic commercial financial institutions, right? Like Islamic banks.
Yes.
Is that the question, Ismo?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so obviously, yes, if you look at, for example, in some GCC countries, during the pandemic, even the Islamic financial institutions who deal with Islamic commercial financing modes has given some qarad, which is interest-free loans, to public. So I believe that that is something that could be considered by the Islamic commercial financial institutions as well. And if that could be done, that would be really wonderful, because then through one roof, under one roof, you are giving two types of Islamic financing modes, right? I hope I have answered your question, Ismail.
Yes, thank you very much.
Welcome. There's one question in the chat. Have there been the cases where there's a misuse of funds ever happening with the implementing Islamic social finance tools? Could also include money laundering and fraud. And if it has ever occurred, what would be the possible approach in mitigating such acts? So I think it's a difficult question to answer. To my knowledge, obviously, because the governance is weak, in some of the organizations handling Islamic social financing tools, such events are occurring even now. The main reason for that is, as you know, for Islamic commercial financing modes, there are a lot of standards, guidance available on how to manage them. But for Islamic social financing tools, we still don't have such comprehensive standards to follow, especially when it comes to governance. So if the governance is weak, obviously it is susceptible to a lot of misuse of funds, corruption, and many other things, including even money laundering issues could be there, because if you don't do proper KYC, obviously it will lead to such issues. So to correct these things or to mitigate these risks, what do we have to do? Number one, we need to regulate it. If you can't regulate it, at least self-regulation is really, really important. Meaning that even if there's no watchdog or a supervisory authority watching your funds, even if you can't register it under any regulatory authorities, the moment you call it an Islamic social finance fund or a tool or an institution, make sure that you apply the proper Sharia governance rules so that at least you on your own are abiding to it. And in terms of eliminating money laundering issues, KYC is also a very important thing when it comes to giving or collection of funds as well. So I believe that even technology could be used in this regard if you can do such an investment. We have blockchain technology that could be, perfect to use in this regard. But again, we have to be mindful of whenever we use the technology, one thing which we have to be careful is that no technology is a magic. First, you have to have the manual process. then only you can, on top of it, you can have technology to regulate it. So don't think that just because you adopt the technology, it's just like a magic lamp, suddenly everything changes. No, we have to have a manual process first. We have to follow proper governance first. Then only all these issues can be eliminated. And that's the main reason why people, if you ask anyone from any like Western country, they would say that instead of an Islamic organization, we prefer to give this and that organization because we know what they do with the money. Now, what does it mean? It means that governance of that particular institution is much more better than what we have with us today. And for that, we have to work very, very hard, I guess. Does it answer your question? Willie, right?
I guess that has answered the question. There is another question in the chat box, which says that I want to ask for the introducing a technology based to locate poor. Should we work together with the government or with some organization? Because they have the data for the location of the poor, but I think some of the data hasn't been updated or is incomplete.
A very good and practical question, I would say. It depends from country to country. If the government is unable to do that, obviously it should be the private sector then who will have to lead it, right? And if the private sector has the will and the government is also having the will, then both in a partnership could do it. So there is no right or wrong answer here. What we need is someone to initiate it. In some parts of the world, you don't have data because those type of data has not been ever collected in those countries. Even when you give zakat, the historical data of zakat is also not, unfortunately, like collected in many of the Muslim countries. And therefore, we don't know what is happening. I mean, we don't know the impact which has been created by these types of tools. So this is the situation we are in. So what do we need to do in order to correct it? We have to start from somewhere. So maybe even if we don't have anything from scratch, from zero, today we can start and try to build something. So I would say that it depends on whoever is willing to do it with you, whether it's from private sector or government sector, doesn't matter. We just need to start it from somewhere. But precise answer would depend on the jurisdiction and the willingness of the authorities and what exactly is the situation there in the particular jurisdiction, I would say.
All right, thank you. So the next question that I have is how small and medium enterprises in that access to Islamic finance can be analyzed from a structural perspective.
Again, it depends from jurisdiction to jurisdiction how they have put such mechanisms in the mainstream of the economy. So meaning that if you don't have an Islamic microfinance institution established with proper governance mechanisms, then you might not be able to access it in a jurisdiction, right? So the most important thing is to understand how these institutions can be established. It could be established through an NGO, or even one person can initiate it, or it could be through the government initiatives that could be initiated. And in some parts of the world, we have also seen that multilateral organizations such as IDB and World Bank also plays a vital role in putting these types of mechanisms in place. So I believe that the first thing to start with would be to establish such institutions in the jurisdiction so that people can have access to it. If you don't have those mechanisms available in countries, then it would be quite impossible to get access to these resources, I guess.
Thank you so much. I hope that has answered the question. With this, I would now conclude the meeting. I thank you for your valuable insight into the matter, Doctor. And I'm honored that you have joined us and made time for us from your busy routine. It was a very well-structured and beautifully presented presentation. Thank you so much. And thank you to the participants who have joined. That will be all from our side, and we hope that you had a great learning experience.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, ma'am. Allah Hafiz.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Aishath Muneeza.
Barakallah fiqh. Thank you very much.